Time now for the WoezorTV report. Let's take a look at the headlines. Thanks so much for joining us. Now let's begin. President John Dramani Mahama says he has no preference over which African country represents the continent on the United Nations Security Council, stressing that what matters is a united and integrated Africa. He says any African country deemed fit by the continent should be supported to represent Africa on the council. President Mahama also condemned xenophobic attacks in South Africa, describing them as an action that undermines efforts towards greater African integration. Speaking on Bigger Than Five, President Mahama said although migration remains an important issue that must be discussed, it cannot be addressed through vigilantism or attacks on foreign nationals.
The problem is who represents us. I think we can reach a consensus on it. Africa needs more integration at this point. And that's why what happened in South Africa is unfortunate, because it comes at a time when we're trying to trade, more amongst ourselves. Mm-hmm. We're trying to improve movement of people and goods across the continent. And so when these, I call them xenophobic, they don't want us to use the word xenophobic, but when these xenophobic actions happen, then it sets back the integration of the continent. Yes, we can discuss the issue of migration, and I think it's something we can put on the agenda of the African Union to discuss. We can discuss the issue of migration, but I do think that you cannot solve migration issues with vigilantism. Vigilantism is not the way to deal with issues of migration. But I'm happy for South Africa and us to put the issue of migration on the agenda of the African Union, because we need free movement of our people. We need better integration. This is when we need integration. I don't mind.
Who do you think would be the best candidate to represent Africa?
Like you said, South Africa is a good candidate. Nigeria is a good candidate. Nigeria is the largest black nation in the world, not in Africa. In the world. And so if Nigeria is a member of the Security Council, North Africa, yes, why not? Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, why not? Okay. They are part of Africa. Several of the countries have, given indication that they are not averse to an expansion of the Security Council. China has expressed support for Africa's request for greater representation in the Security Council. We can expand the veto and give one veto to the new member.
President Mahama further reiterated calls for a reordering of the global economic order, including reforms to the international financial architecture. He says Africa must strengthen its own financial institutions and take bold steps to mobilize the continent's resources for its development. President Mahama believes allocating about 30% of Africa's foreign reserves to the African Development Bank could provide significant financing for development across the continent.
There should be a reordering of the whole global economic order, including the financial architecture. But we cannot wait for that to be given to us on a silver platter. And that's why we're saying that we must come together and strengthen African financial institutions. Again, I'm the champion for strengthening African financial institutions. Africa has billions of dollars in foreign reserves held outside the continent. And so if we even agreed that we'll take 30% of our foreign reserves and put it into African Development Bank or an African financial institution so that we could go and borrow at affordable rates for our own infrastructure development, I think that's a starting point. I mean, there's no rule that stops us from putting our reserves in an African financial institution. If we took 30% of our reserves and decided to put it into an African monetary fund, nobody can stop us. On the sidelines of the AU, we normally hold a function for African financial institutions. At the last discussion, this came up, including other ways in which we could strengthen those institutions. And so every year we compare notes and see how we're doing. For instance, the Africa Exim Bank is doing very well in terms of financing, important investments. And so we need a railway to the mines. We need an aluminum refinery. We need a thermal power plant to provide power. These are things that if we decide to go to the international capital market for money, the rate at which we'll borrow will be too expensive. But if we could borrow from an African financial institution at 2%, 3%, I mean, that would be wonderful.
Now, the high-level committee of experts set by President Mahama to prepare Ghana's strategy for his 2027 African Union chairmanship has concluded its work and presented 5 reports to the president. The Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who chairs the committee, handed over the reports to President Mahama at the presidency on Friday and presented highlights of the committee's work. The report outlined the strategy, priority areas, and work program expected to guide Ghana's leadership of the African Union when President Mahama assumes the chairmanship in January 2027. The Foreign Affairs Minister says the extensive preparations are expected to support a transformative and impactful tenure of President Mahama while advancing Ghana's vision for Africa. Now, away from the president, government has reached an agreement with Adamus Resources Limited to revive and turn around the operations of the indigenous large-scale mining company. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, the Minerals Commission, and Adamus Resources have been tasked to develop a 12-month roadmap for the revival of the mine. As part of the arrangement, a 6-member management team comprising 3 representatives from Adamus and 3 from government will be established to supervise the turnaround process. The roadmap will also address outstanding liabilities owed by Adamus to the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Minerals Income Investment Fund, financial institutions, and suppliers. Government and Adamus will further explore options to inject fresh capital into the operation, including bringing in additional equity partners. The agreement follows a meeting at the presidency to resolve the dispute between the 2 parties and safeguard one of Ghana's few operating indigenous large-scale mines. The 2 sides are expected to submit the 12-month roadmap to the presidency within 2 weeks. Now, away from that, the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission, Dr. Kamaseo Prosper Akabon, says HIV status should not be used as a basis to deny anyone employment or promotion. Speaking on WoezorTV's The Interview on Sunday, August 23, Dr. Akabon reacted to reports about 1,300 prospective security recruits were rejected during the recent recruitment exercise after HIV testing explained that a single test cannot be used to confirm an HIV infection, stressing that Ghana's testing protocols requires a 3-test algorithm before a person can be declared HIV positive.
That you have HIV, you need to have it's an algorithm of 3 tests. Okay, so you have to go through that algorithm of 3 tests, and when all of them are positive, then you are now declared a positive patient who would now be enrolled on. So you see the last security recruitment, they said 1,300. Yeah. Well, a bit of a misunderstanding, because that alone doesn't make the people have it HIV. First of all, they have to go through the 3 algorithms of tests before they can be declared that they are positive. Let me say by law that it is not a prerequisite for employment. It is not a prerequisite for employment. It's not a prerequisite for promotion.
Now, Ghana has launched 5 national strategic documents to strengthen the country's preparedness and response to public health emergencies. The framework is expected to improve coordination, information sharing, and emergency operations from the national level down to the regional, district, and community levels.
Has launched 5 national documents to strengthen the country's preparedness and response to public health emergencies. The documents will guide the establishment and operation of public health emergency operation centers at the national, regional, district, and community levels. The initiative is expected to improve coordination during disease outbreaks, disasters, and other emergencies by bringing together information, resources, and expertise from relevant institutions.
Our country has the history of seasonal outbreaks of meningitis, cholera, typhoid, seasonal flu, and other outbreaks, including mpox. Crises test our resilience, but a functional EOC ensures we do not react in silos. It acts as the single command room for real-time surveillance and situational awareness. It bridges the gap between data collection and high-level strategic action and serves as a multi-sectoral unity by connecting health ministries, emergency services, laboratory and animal agencies under one collaborative umbrella.
The 5 documents include a national strategic plan, a public health emergency operations center handbook, standard operating procedures, and 2 frameworks for managing public health workforce surges. The framework forms part of Ghana's broader efforts to strengthen health security and improve its implementation of international emergency response requirements.
Public health emergency preparedness and response cannot be the responsibility of the health sector alone. It requires connected leadership, strong multi-sectoral coordination, timely information sharing, clear accountability, and collective action. The documents we launched today are therefore more than Ghana Health Service documents. They contribute to the national architecture for strengthening public health emergency management and advancing Ghana's national and global health security commitments.
Stakeholders say the focus must now shift from developing the documents to implementing, testing, and continuously updating them to ensure Ghana is ready when the next public health emergency occurs. For WoezorTV, Ellen from Bonn.
Now, Chief of Staff Julius Deborah has called for collective action to build a cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable Ghana. Speaking at the Ghana Sanitation and Clean Environment Conference held under the theme Towards a Clean Ghana, Collective Action for Sustainable Cities, Responsible Production, and Climate Resilience, the Chief of Staff said a cleaner Ghana is not a luxury but a necessity. He said while government must lead the fight through investment, enforcement, and accountability, citizens, businesses, and institutions must also take responsibility for protecting the environment. The Chief of Staff stressed that no sanitation policy can succeed if citizens continue to litter, businesses neglect responsible production, and institutions fail to enforce environmental standards. He highlighted the need for clean drains, safe sanitation facilities, protection of water bodies, restoration of forests, and responsible waste management. And still on sanitation, Zoom Lion Ghana Limited has commenced a disinfection and disinfestation exercise across markets, public toilets, and other sanitary facilities in the Greater Accra region. The exercise follows the recent flooding in parts of the region and is aimed at reducing the spread of disease-causing organisms and controlling flies, mosquitoes, and other disease vectors. Zoom Lion says the initiatives form part of its corporate social responsibility and will cover all 29 metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies in the region.
Lion is stepping up efforts to protect public health in the aftermath of the recent floods with a region-wide disinfection and disinfestation exercise. The exercise targets markets, public toilets, drains, dumping areas, and other sanitary facilities that may have been exposed to contaminated floodwater. Zoom Lion says the exercise will cover all 29 metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies in the Greater Accra region. The Greater Accra Regional Manager, Ricky Anoche Frempong, says the company is bearing the full cost of the exercise as part of its commitment to supporting the assemblies and protecting the health of residents. He says the chemical being applied are intended to control microorganisms as well as flies and mosquitoes that could increase following flooding. Municipal Environmental Health Officer for Ayawaso North, Richard Donko, explains that the runoff can carry dangerous pathogens from public toilets, septic tanks, drains and dumping sites into communities. He says the disinfection exercise will increase to help eliminate pathogenic organisms that may have been carried by the floodwaters. As the Greater Accra region continues to deal with the environmental impacts of the recent floods, Zoom Lion says it will sustain the exercise across the 29 MMDAs. The company believes the intervention will complement the work of local assemblies and help reduce the risk of water and sanitation-related diseases in affected communities. For WoezorTV, Richard Asamoah.
Now, still on issues of sanitation, work has begun to reclaim the Lafa water retention basin at Malam, following years of illegal dumping and encroachment that have severely reduced its capacity and contributed to flooding in Malam, Weja, Dansoman, and surrounding communities. The 48th Engineer Regiment of the Ghana Armed Forces is using heavy equipment to break up compacted waste, dredge the basin, and evacuate the debris to a designated landfill site at Insawam. The exercise also involves the demolition of illegal structures within the water reserve and the construction of protective embankment to prevent further encroachments. Head of Drainage at the Ghana Hydrological Authority, Engineer Richard Kofi Ameko, says restoring the basin's capacity will significantly reduce the impact of flooding, although it may not eliminate it entirely.
Accommodate flows, high flows from those areas, and then hold this for some time before discharging gradually into the sea. But what do we see now? We can see that the place has been heavily filled with solid waste. And according to the June 29th rainfall, you could see that the whole place was submerged. The reason being that the flow from Bale, which runs under the Malam Junction Road, when it got here, at the angle at which they have filled here, did not allow the water to flow towards the sea. So it means that the backwater went into the communities of Blue Lagoon and then Dansuman area. There's another water also that comes from, which is the Lafa. It also takes it from Alaji Tabora, which runs through some part of Santa Maria, also through some point of Antieku, and it comes under the N1, which also discharges here. And that flow is also a high flow. The catchment is very big. Now, there's another flow also from Blue Lagoon. Okay, if I say Blue Lagoon, I'm talking about the Dansuman Enclave. Also flows towards here. Looking at the topography, you could see that the Makati Hill, if you look at the up there, you see the hill there. All the flow descends down here. If you look at Dansuman area, Dansuman is also on the higher side. They all discharge into this basin. But if you can see, if you can see what is happening now, it's allowing water not to flow towards the sea. So what happens is that there is backwater into these communities. So if you have the videos of a chance on the 29th downpour that we had, you could see how devastating the place was, how people were in, the whole place was submerged. It's as a result of this. But now the government is in now to scoop all this material it is a bit challenging. Okay, now this material all has to be evacuated and be sent to a final disposal site. After that is done, I'm sure we're going to have our reservoir back, which will accommodate a lot of flow, and it will mitigate the flood that we do experience. Even though we might experience flooding, but the magnitude, the level of flooding that we had, we might not see so. And I thank government for this.
And now the commander of the 14 Engineer Brigade, Brigadier General Richard Kine, says the clearing and evacuation of the waste will take months, with haulage expected to take place at night. The Flood Mitigation Task Force says similar works are ongoing at Oyarifa, its Lagoon, and the Peshi Lagoon, with work expected to begin at the Peshi Laboma Beach area next week to reopen the channel into the sea. The authorities are appealing to residents to stop illegal dumping and encroachment and are urging the private sector to support the flood mitigation program. Now, away from that, administrator of the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, Obobiada Kopuku, has marked her 49th birthday by giving back to young people, donating 50,000 Ghana cedis alongside educational and menstrual hygiene supplies to the Anglican Young People's Association, Diocese of Koforidua. The gesture forms part of AYPA's 30th anniversary community outreach aimed at supporting the dignity, education, and well-being of young people.
Obobiada Kopuku, administrator for the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, has chosen to mark her 49th birthday by giving back to young people, donating 50,000 Ghana cedis and educational and menstrual hygiene supplies to the Anglican Young People's Association, Diocese of Koforidua. The donation, presented at St. John the Divine Anglican Church in Nsawam, includes 10,000 packs of sanitary pads, 5,000 stationery pouches, 5,000 pencils and 5,000 pens in support of AYPA's community outreach. Speaking during the presentation, Bishop of the Anglican Diocese of Koforidua, Right Reverend Felix Odeyananse, expressed gratitude to Obobiada Kopuku for supporting children and young people through the initiative.
Madam Obobia, on behalf of the Anglican Diocese of Koforidua, I sincerely thank you for remembering the children who may easily be forgotten. By this gesture, you are helping to put smiles on their faces.
The gesture fulfills a promise Obobia made in April after AYPA representatives visited her office and shared their vision of supporting children and young people through practical interventions. For Obobiada Kopuku, the donation goes beyond the items being presented. She believes simple interventions can make a meaningful difference in a young person's life.
I want us to see this donation as an investment in dignity, confidence, and education. A sanitary pad can help a young girl stay in school with confidence. A pen or a pencil can help a child participate fully in class. A stationery pouch can give a student the simple tools they need to learn. Sometimes, what may appear small to us can mean so much to a child. If this donation can make one girl feel more confident, help one child participate more fully in class, or remind even one child that somebody believes in their future, then I will consider this birthday beautifully celebrated.
As AYPA celebrates 30 years of service, Obobiada Kopuku says her birthday gesture is a gift of gratitude and love to young people. She hopes the initiative will help more children feel supported, participate confidently in school, and see their future as one worth investing in. Reporting for WoezorTV, Belinda Anand Kwanzaa.
Now, the Member of Parliament for Madina, Dr. Francis Xavier Sosu, has presented assorted items to Assembly members and ward coordinators in the constituency to support community outreach activities. The donation is aimed at equipping local representatives to extend support to residents in their communities. The items include rice, mattresses, mosquito nets, buckets, street lights, and football jerseys, alongside cash support. Mr. Sosu says the initiative is also intended to strengthen the ability of assembly members and ward coordinators to respond to the community needs on behalf of his office.
Members of the Medina Municipal Assembly, the Medina Land Patrol Municipal Assembly, and of course with our government appointees and all the ward coordinators within Medina, so that can present to them street lights, jerseys, because we know there's a lot of football galas going on around us, rice. We also have mattresses, we have mosquito nets, we have buckets, and then of course some small cash support the work that they do. And we believe that this should be able to empower the assembly members and the ward coordinators for them to continue to represent the interests of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and a reset agenda in their various communities.
Time now for some international news. Now, at least 30 people have been killed in a mold of rubbish at a major wayside collapse onto nearby communities in Guinea's capital, Conakry. Another 22 people were injured, including 6 seriously in the city's Dar es Salaam area. Significant resources and personnel, including the military, have been deployed to search for survivors after the collapse at about 2 o'clock local time on early morning of Sunday, August 23, following heavy rain overnight. One woman told local media that her 5 children had died in the disaster. There are fears that the death toll would rise further. Now this brings us to the end of the WoezorTV reports. Many thanks for joining us. I am Karen Na Uyu Kwoti.